Alrighty, friends. I think I've got everything up and running on my end. If folks could let me know in the live chat if things are working okay, that would be great. Let me know if you can both see and hear me okay. That would be wonderful. Just playing with a few settings here. Okay. How's it sounding? How's it looking, team? Looks like we've got our moderators here. The full awesome team is assembled. We have Susan, Mandy, Joe, and Lisa moderating. If folks can let me know if they can see and hear me okay, that would be great. Sweet. Sounds like I've got at least one vote in that folks can see and hear me. That's wonderful. So we'll just a little bit of chit chat here. We'll get going here at the start or the top of the hour. But thank you all for being here and spending part of your day with myself and Myron, especially those who might be new to me. This might be kind of a new face that you're not used to in terms of geology, so welcome. Thanks for finding your way onto my channel. And we'll give a few shout outs while we're waiting for folks to file in. Oh boy, let's scroll back to the top. And we got Ann Umphrey and John Plong. Yeah, some folks who found me through Nick or found Myron through me or, whatever. 3 degrees of separation, I suppose, whatever the case may be. Patsy from Davison, Michigan is here. Let me pull this over here so it doesn't look like I'm looking off the screen. Oh, wait, that's not going to work. Got to do it this way. Let's see. Who else is on here? Shane from the UK. Got Brian E. Sandrine from France. How are you? Pascal from Luxembourg. Joanne Kellum from Chesapeake, Virginia. Joanne, your gift from my wife arrived today, and I set it on the bed, so she'll get that later. So thank you so much for sending that. I did open it because my name was on the box, but I quickly saw it was actually for her. So that's much appreciated. Thank you. Let's see. Shawn says all things are good here in Cali. Wonderful. Hope everyone's having some, well, depending on which hemisphere you're in. If you're in the northern hemisphere, hopefully you're getting a little taste of spring. Some of you maybe have never had winter. Kirsty from Hartpool, UK. N-Steel from Germany. How are you? Janet Clancy from Devon, UK. Awesome. Mary from Eastern Arizona. Born and raised there myself. Born in Phoenix. Lived in Flagstaff. I'm wearing my, it's on this side. This side. Northern Arizona University shirt today, which has a connection to Myron, so we might get to that. Wally from Emmett, Idaho. Shelly from Langley, BC. Sheila from Denver. Oh, she got to catch us in replay. Just got a call. That's okay. Life happens. Catch us on the replay. No big whoop. DHOS06 from Denver. Michelle from BC. Hello from the heart of California Delta. Kinnick's Kid. Francis from Washington, D.C. It's sunny and 70s in Dayton, Ohio, says Peter. Tony from Kent, UK. Brian E's in Vancouver, Washington. Aaron's in California. Lydia in Snohomish, Washington. Carmen's in Mexican Hat, Utah, looking at rocks. Great geology down there. We did a San Juan River trip 2 years ago. I did a couple videos down there too, from the Comb Ridge monocline and what was the other one? The Mule Ear Diatreme. So you might look for those back in the archives if you're interested. Paul from Yorkshire, UK. Amy's in Florida. And then my stupid screen just jumped down and skipped past a bunch of people. But we'll scroll back. We can handle it. Kara, Fargo, North Dakota. Jeanette, mid-Alabama here. Linda from Western Montana. Howdy. Cherry from Cologne, Germany. John's excited to see Myron live, as am I and a lot of people. Zenobia Evans from Minneapolis. Michael from New Zealand, Brent from East Texas, Iman from North Carolina, Jenny's in Kansas. Wow, the mid-states are representing. Anne Marie's in Central Texas. Tim is in Seacoast, New Hampshire. Hard Rock Girl is in Dorset, UK. Thanks for joining us this evening if you're in the Eastern Hemisphere. Greg in Eastern Tennessee, how are you, my friend? Oh, heading my way in August. Okay, let me know when you're going to be around. School will be starting back up, so I should be in the area. Renee from Monroe, North Carolina. Chris from England. Helen from the UK. Bob from Grand Forks, North Dakota. Christopher from Fullerton, California. Snapdog from Rochester, New York. Danny's in Tampa. Yeah. I don't know why I read these, but it's fun to get the shout out, right? Lloyd from Hinesville, Georgia. John in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. Of course, you can read all these, but it's fun to get the shout out. Dan Cooper, how are you? From Boring, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You know, no place is totally boring. I can't think of, well, there's a few places I might consider boring, but we won't go there. Jack Strange from Santa Rosa, California. Fox Fur in Colorado Springs, beautiful area. Gail's in Helsinki, Finland. And from the mountains of North Carolina. We'll do shout outs here for team for a few minutes, and then we'll get going. We got Myron there, as you can probably see above my head, who's in the waiting room. I'm just going to kind of leave him there till we get started here officially at 2. I'll do like maybe just a minute or two of just a few announcements, and then we'll get him in here and get right to it. So, yeah, so let's do a couple more hellos to folks. It's just fun to see where people are from, right? Like, and again, the dream, someone developed this, some smart person developed it'd be fun if right now, instead of looking at my face, there was like a map. And as I'm calling people out, or as you guys log in, it populates little pins all over the map, all over the world, with your name or your handle or whatever. That would be really cool. I skipped down a little bit, so I probably missed a few, and I apologize. But let's see, Ruth from Yorkshire, Nita from Spokane. Ann Humphreys lived in Flagstaff when she was at North Arizona College with maybe 5,000 students. Yeah, now it's NAU. And yeah, I am a graduate from there, as is Myron. There's the connection. I gave it away already. Gail Vaught from Northeast Georgia. Spider from Wales. Wendy from Pembroke, Southwest Wales. Jan from Denver. Kate from not boring Pittsburgh. There you go. Patrick from Stockholm, Sweden. Susan G'day from New South Wales, Australia. Down under, great. Erica from Sweden. TS from Washington, D.C. Rebecca from Oak Island, North Carolina. Love your live streams. Thank you, Rebecca. Appreciate that. Jean saying hello from Laguna Hills, California. Donnell is in Eugene, Oregon, in the Willamette Valley. Thomas is in Seattle, but wishes he was in Iceland. Peter from Agora Hills, and on and on and on. Christine from Italy. Pam from the Bitterroot Valley, Montana. Laura is in Valparaiso, Chile. That's awesome. That's high on my list. Getting to Chile in the next couple of years would be really great. Christina from Calgary, Alberta. Dave from Salt Lake City. Mark from Hawaii. Great stuff. Looks like we have quite a few folks here. I'm expecting this to be a pretty full house. We should have a lot of folks here. We're sort of cross-pollinating my viewers with Myron's viewers, and I know there's a lot of you that are the same, so I don't know how many new folks will be in here, but we'll sort of treat it as such and make sure that we invite everyone in, and we all have a good time here together. So, okay, it is 2 o'clock on my watch here on the computer, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining me. My name is Shawn Willsey. I'm a geology professor here in southern Idaho. Also a YouTube creator focused on geology education. This is a special live stream edition here on April 30th. Want to welcome all the viewers who might be here by way of Myron Cook, who is our special guest, also a geologist and YouTube educator. I don't really like the term YouTuber, so I've decided I'm okay with the handle and the title YouTube Educator. That sounds a little more, then people don't mistake me as some video game player or whatnot. So welcome you all here. Notice in our live chat that we have some great moderators that are there to make sure we all sort of stay on topic. We're all nice. They can also sometimes answer a lot of questions quickly on the fly. Once I get going with my conversation with Myron, I'll be focused on him and in our conversation, so I won't be addressing the live chat. However, we will do a viewer question and answer at the end, so our moderators will aggregate your questions and send them to me, and make sure you follow their directions on how they want those questions submitted so they can clearly pick those out of the live chat. Also, if you can be specific with your question and let me know if that question is for Myron or myself or for both of us, that would be helpful as well. But we're real excited to have him on. Let me just do a quick little programming note and we'll get right to it. So looking forward, I'm wrapping up the semester currently here on campus. This is our last week of instruction. We give exams next week. Looking forward, I am planning to have the video with Greg Stock, who's the Yosemite National Park geologist. That will take place next Tuesday, I believe. That will not be a live stream. I'll videotape that and upload that as soon as I can, but really looking forward to that. I think you'll also see Greg Stock has a really cool story and does some amazing work in Yosemite National Park, particularly with rockfall hazards. Looking forward, I will try to get out and do some field videos, looking at maybe this Friday, some places here in Idaho. I'll try to get some videos up for you soon. And then I'll be leaving for Iceland on May 13th, and I'll be there till the 30th. So a big chunk of May, I will be in Iceland. I'll bring all the tools, and if I have time and am able to, I'll do updates while I'm there. Of course, while I'm in Iceland, I'll try to also set aside some time to make some extra videos out in the field there in Iceland as well. So looking forward to that. So those are some things from my end that you can look forward to. But let's go ahead and bring in our guest for today. And so let's just get him in here. There he is. How are you doing, sir? Oh, you're muted right now. I think when you jump in, it mutes you right away.
There we go.
There we go. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, we're good, I think, huh?
Yeah, let's make sure in the live chat, if you guys can make sure you can hear Myron okay as well. Looks like you can see him okay. Everyone. There we go. Yeah, just someone give a quick little confirmation that we can hear and see Myron, and then we can get started here. So how are we looking there?
Well, I've got to say something, I guess, don't I?
Yeah, yeah. If you're not talking, we can't tell, I suppose. Yeah, it looks like it's coming through well as far as I can tell. So, yep, 5 by 5. So we're good to go, Myron. So thanks again for joining us. Appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you having me on here. You're the expert on doing these live casts. I've had some problems when I try it.
I felt all your pain when I watched one of yours because I don't think I'm an expert at all, and it's a work in progress. The technology hurdle is real, and I think you and I are similar in that you got to kind of figure it out on your own. Neither one of us has like an IT person, right there to help you. So,
yeah, for sure. Especially me. I'm getting older there.
Well,
you're still a youngster.
I don't know. I bet we're closer in age than you'd think. So
could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
Well, I thought we would, if we talked to you and I talked a little bit yesterday, and so you kind of have an idea of the format for today. I think a lot of the viewers would get a real kick out of getting to know you a little bit better. People that might be new to you from my channel, Myron puts together amazing, well-scripted and well-crafted geology education videos on his YouTube channel. I joked with him yesterday that, if we were both on a basketball team, he would be the guy that comes into the game, only takes maybe 6 or 7 shots, but makes maybe all of them. And so he's very efficient because Myron and I have about the same number of viewers, but he only has like 25 videos, and yet I've got hundreds of videos, and we still have more or less the same amount of subscribers. So I'm sort of like the basketball player that's just chucking it up from the cheap seats. So we both do, I think,
they both work.
They both work. It's a different style. It's different personalities. So, but maybe let's just start with a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and how you became interested in geology. Let's just start there.
Well, that's a good question. I grew up in and this is where I've retired back to, a small community, farming community, Burlington, Wyoming, which is along the Grable River, which feeds into the Bighorn River, which continues on to the Yellowstone for the geography buffs out there. Small farming community. My dad was a beekeeper, had some sheep. I worked for local farmers, and I remember a few times, two or three times as a youngster, seeing geologists go out into the Badlands, not far from where I was working. I'd be out slaving hard, lifting hay bales back in the day. We lifted them by hand,
Yeah,
stacking them on trucks.
strong backs.
And I'll never forget one day seeing a group of geologists heading out into the hills and thinking, how do they get paid to go out into the hills? Because I enjoyed going out into the Badlands, especially with my great uncle, who was really into, he was kind of a rock hound, but also an amateur geologist. So,
How old were you at the time?
oh, I was probably, that particular event I mentioned to you, I was probably 16, 17, maybe
Okay.
something like that.
And you knew they were
But
geologists how? Did they have like a
yeah,
van or?
I think they had the name on the side or something, or
Right.
and you hear it around town.
Yeah.
People comment, "Oh, there's geologists," because they still go out there. But
Yeah.
the research has evolved through time. Very famous area, those Badlands, for fluvial processes or river processes. For those of us that may not know what fluvial is, but so that kind of set a real early thing. Grew up there, and I decided I really enjoy the land. I enjoy farming. In fact, I was just out this morning doing a little bit of work on my tractor, still enjoying that. But I could tell that my real passion was, something, and I didn't know what geology was.
So you didn't have
Had
any,
no idea.
yeah, no classes
No
in high
idea.
school, earth science or
No,
geology.
no.
So then you get through high school and then the seed had kind of been
I, s-
planted, but you didn't really know where it was going to go, right?
I had no idea what it was until I took Geology 101. And for me, it was a life-altering event. And I've had many viewers of my channel comment to me and say, "You have changed the way I see the world around me." And let me tell you, you don't get better feedback than that, do
Yeah.
you? In fact, there's a local person just a few weeks ago I took out into the Badlands, and every time I see him, he said, "You've changed my life." And he means it literally.
Yeah.
I've never seen the world around me like that. I love that feedback.
No,
But
it's the
I
best
had
compliment you can get for sure. Yeah.
oh yeah. And I had that very same experience, learning, starting to learn geology and going, for instance, something as simple as a canyon that a river flows in. I always just kind of assumed the canyon was always there, but no, the river cut the canyon. That's
Hmm.
why the canyon's there.
Right.
Something as basic as that was like, oh my word, are you
Yeah,
kidding
mind
me?
blowing. Yeah. So you're a
Yeah, yeah.
freshman. Where are you at school at this point? You're in college now and
I, yeah, I did 4 years. I did my bachelor's degree at University of Wyoming.
okay,
And
Laramie.
then, of course, then I went on to northern Arizona,
Yeah,
where we
there's
crossed
there's my shirt
paths,
right there.
kind of, sort of.
Yeah,
We
you
didn't cross
preceded me.
paths, but
Yeah, you were there a
yeah,
little bit before me, but same school, same department.
yeah. And
And
I
so,
studied under, yeah,
sorry, go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask. So so you take that 101 class as a freshman or a sophomore, and then that's the catalyst that you lock into geology. That becomes your major, and that's kind of set you on that path. Is that kind of how that went?
Pretty much. Then I wanted to know, well, how do geologists actually make a living? And I
Right,
decided pretty early on I didn't want to be an academic. A lot of people out there think I have a PhD and am an academic, and
right,
it's just not for me, just not my cup of tea.
right.
And then I started looking into, well, what options do I have? And ultimately settled on petroleum geology, and that was kind of my goal. And at the time, it was really difficult to get a job at the
So this
time.
is
I
early
was
80s or mid 80s or
my first full-time job as a summer student was in
okay.
1988. And
Hmm.
then, it was still dicey, and I did get a full-time employment though right out of school, in 1989. But I was the only one at that year, I was the only one at Northern Arizona that got a job.
Wow. So it was a bleak job
So it
market coming
was,
out of
ooh.
school.
And
Um,
I had 4 children at the time.
oh, wow. So
We have 4 children.
you
I mean,
had
that's
mouths
all
to
we have.
feed.
That's plenty.
Yeah, you had
And my
hungry
dear
mouths to
wife,
feed. Yeah.
yeah, and it was, boy, I'll tell you, what's the term the young people use? There's a movie that people like, where you're all competing for life. I don't know. I don't recall the
Oh,
movie, but
okay.
it was very serious for me at the time,
Yeah.
with a young family.
Yeah, you had to step up and start providing. Now, where did you do
Yeah.
your master's research for your thesis with Ron Blakey? Where was that? Where did that research take place, and what was kind of the focus there?
So for those out there that don't know Ron, he may be the most famous geologist on the planet because of his maps, don't you think? I mean, he could be.
I think in terms of how
For,
widespread they are used,
yeah,
I think there's an argument to be made there for sure because people don't know his name per se, but they've probably seen his maps.
yeah,
So influential.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. He has. For those out, I use those now and then. They're referred to as deep time maps if you
Hmm.
look up deep time. But Ron is a great field geologist, and he's into stratigraphy and sedimentology, which is what I really kind of gravitated to. Although I loved hard rocks, I loved all of geology.
Yeah, sure.
I
But you got to
loved it
pick
all.
something.
But
By the time you get to a master's degree, they sort of force you to like
yeah,
pick a focus, pick a path to follow, and
hmm
you pick a research project, and then you build classes and curriculum that dovetail with that.
So Ron, he had a big grant, and so he was able to pay me, help me out with graduate school, which was nice. And I did a study on the Moenkopi Formation. It's
Mm.
Triassic age red beds. Some of you may be familiar with the geology here because I've used it on my channel. The Chugwater is an equivalent formation here in Wyoming. And I studied that along the Little Colorado River on up to the Grand Canyon as close as, you have outcrops of it and out in that country.
Just looking
So it
at
was
depositional environments, or like just sort of what was it more like fossil record?
it
What
was
was?
it was a lot of depositional environments, how those rocks were deposited, and then it kind of turned into an interesting thing. There's what's called the Kaibab monocline, which you
Hmm.
may or may not, I don't know what you've done or
Yeah,
what you
I know. I'm
did, but
familiar with that. Yeah, big fold.
the
It's a yeah.
Kaibab monocline was there in my study area. And for those of you, I want to explain something. You have rocks that are in place before the rock is deformed. So if you have a bunch of parallel layers and they're all deformed, they'll all be parallel because they were there prior. It's a very simple concept, but it's
Right.
also very powerful. I use it in the oil and gas industry a lot to help think about where oil might be, for instance, of all things. But it turned out you look at the Kaibab monocline and you look at the layers that I was involved with, they all looked very parallel. Okay. And you go, oh, well, they were there prior to that fold happening. But you get into the nitty gritty and you can see evidence, tiny little gravel deposits that were only there right on the monocline, and things. And you found evidence that in reality, it was there, but it was so subtle that you don't see significant thickness changes or
Mm,
anything, but
right.
you do see changes in the sedimentology. And actually, I've seen that many, many times in my career and in the work I've done, where these depositional environments are super sensitive to any the smallest perturbation you can imagine will affect those depositional environments, and you can see
Right.
it and pick it up if you look carefully.
So I'm interested in this. So if I'm reading you right, the Moenkopi Formation, there you found evidence that there was at least, if not a structure, then some topography that it was deposited on, so that you didn't get an even blanket of the
Right.
same grain size, but there were tiny. The thickness was the same, but places that might have been more sandy, maybe a little bit of gravel, other places more
Yep.
mud. Interesting. Okay, didn't know
Yeah, and it
that.
was definitely a very clear signal.
Yeah.
And that ended up being a big focus on my thesis. And I was terrified going in to defend my thesis. I don't know what it
Well,
was
everyone
like for
is.
you by the time it got to you.
It's a
You know,
sweat fest.
times change, but in my era anyway, it was scary, you know,
Yeah.
and I knew all these professors well, but I was still mortified, you know,
Yeah.
they were going to put me into the gun. And we got into my defense, and I don't know if you knew Larry Middleton.
Yep. Yeah, I had a class from
Uh,
him. Yep.
okay, yeah, he's a
I
really
took
good geologist.
sandstone
Yeah,
petrology with Larry Middleton.
yeah. Anyway, he and Ron and a couple other professors got into this big debate, and I just sat back. You know, I triggered this debate in my defense, and I just sat back and listened to it all, and they're all going after it, and that was my defense.
And you're watching the
I
clock
never
thinking
had,
like, well, if they keep going on, they can't ask me too many questions because someone's going to get hungry. Oh, so you didn't get grilled
yeah.
too much then. They just
No, I
talked amongst
didn't. They
themselves.
got all sidetracked, and you know they
Yeah.
loved the work I did. They were happy with it and all, but
Yeah.
it was I was sure grateful. It's like, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
argue all you want, guys. Go for it.
That's a great story. Yeah, I mean the thesis defense it's a bit of a formality because at that point your advisor should have
Yeah,
prepared you. You've done
yep,
all the work and it's just let us get you in a formal setting, presenting your work and answering some questions about
yeah.
it.
Hmm.
And so it's not meant to be a grinder, but that myth exists. People think it's like some,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
maybe at some schools with, I mean, there's horror stories out there, and so there's got to be some,
I'm sure.
yeah. But it sounds like you
I'm
like
sure. Yeah,
dodged it, yeah. And Larry, I could totally see Larry and Ron just getting off on tangents and going back and forth, and you're just like up against the wall, like hoping, like, okay, keep going,
yeah,
guys. That's great. So you finished at NAU, and then with your master's degree, and then what
yeah.
company did you start working for, and what kind of projects did they have you on, and what did
There
that
were
look like?
two. This is an interesting sideline. There were two. One of them you may know of, Chuck
Okay.
Cluth. He's done a lot of work on the ancestral Rocky Mountains. He's quite a bit older than me, but he's a well-known geologist, structural geologist, Chuck Cluth. And another fellow by the name of David Sanders, who also had gone to NAU. He interviewed me from Mobil for
Mm,
Mobil Oil Corporation.
okay.
And I got lucky, you know, and got the only
Yeah.
job offer and all that. So I went to Mobil in Midland, Texas,
Mm. Packed up the four kids
which,
and let's go to Midland, Texas, team.
yeah, and I'll tell you, I mean, for a Wyoming country boy and all that, and the Rocky Mountains, and I was very excited, but also like, wow, this is just a completely different world. It did help though. We're driving along in our little minivan. I think it was a minivan at the time with our kids. And just as we crossed the Texas border near, I think it was Pecos, Texas,
Mm-hmm.
along the highway, this empty stretch of highway, just after we crossed the border, we see on the highway, I'll bet there were 20, 30 stuffed animals laying on the highway, like had fallen out of, and it was like a gift to
Right.
from heaven. We stopped and the kids
The kids loaded
each
up.
got a stuffed animal, and they
That was
thought, okay, Texas is a good place.
that was Texas's welcome gift to you right there was just
Right.
stuffed
Yeah.
animals on the highway. So, and you were just mud logging at the time, kind of basic
No, they put
entry
me
level
right
kind of
in.
things or okay.
Well, no, actually, you're right. They did start me on that for a few months.
Okay.
Uh,
You got to get your
just out
teeth.
on the rig,
Yeah.
learning, be out on the drilling rig, and then, but pretty quickly, I certainly gravitated to it. But looking at depositional systems, looking at the geology, especially big picture,
Right.
and it didn't take me long to establish kind of that that's what I was good at,
Mm-hmm.
and it was helpful to them, and so I ended up doing that. Really, my entire career is just a lot of regional work. So I feel, as a geologist anyway, super duper fortunate. I saw so many basins, geologic basins all around the world and got to study them at high levels, with all the data available. And
Right.
so, man, I've seen so much, and
Did you
it's
travel a
it's
lot or were
always
you
wonderful.
based in Texas the whole time or
We lived we lived in Midland, then we moved to Dallas, then we moved to Argentina. We
Oh, wow.
spent close to 3 years in Buenos Aires, uh, where all my family learned Spanish.
So your kids are like in school at this point, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that was probably a great experience.
And back to Texas. Then we went to Canada, to Calgary.
Hmm.
Awesome place, beauty,
Right,
the Canadian Rockies.
right. Yeah, Foreland
Yeah,
Basin right there.
beautiful. Ooh.
It,
Then back again to Texas. And then finally, the last 5 years of my career, I got a really good opportunity to go to Saudi Arabia,
oh,
work and
wow.
see their systems.
Hmm.
I mean, that's a crazy world over there.
Yeah. Is this all with mobile,
Quite
or
an
did you
adventure.
jump around to different
No,
companies? Okay.
when I went to Saudi Arabia, I worked for Aramco,
Okay.
which is it originally was an Exxon company.
They're based in Denver, right?
Aramco has an office in Houston, but
Oh, okay.
they're actually based out of Dhahran, Saudi
Oh,
Arabia, and that's where
okay.
I was. I was in their headquarters, and
Hmm.
this is the amazing thing. And unfortunately, many of you won't know much about the petroleum industry, but as any industry, most any industry, you go through phases where you go through, you find the easy stuff, so to speak. You see the things that are kind of obvious,
Hmm.
and it gets progressively more difficult. And they just started a phase. They were really starting to get serious about what's called stratigraphic trapping of hydrocarbons.
Hmm.
What that simply means is most of the early oil, say here in the United States, through probably, I'm going to say the 1960s, maybe early 70s, the vast majority of it, unless you're underneath salt, way out in the deep water, but the vast majority of it was in simple folds,
Right.
stuck. Just
Structural
think of it
traps. Yeah.
pretty simple, pretty
Right.
straightforward. Uh, And then stratigraphic traps are maybe you have an aeolian dune field, let's say, windblown sand dunes
Hmm.
sitting in a layer underground. And on one side of it, it changes to evaporites. So that would be something like gypsum or salt or something. And it's been tipped, and you've got just the right things going on, and it gets stuck in the sands of the dunes, for instance. That would be
Right.
one.
So it's
So
trying
we
to
refer
migrate
to that,
upwards, but it's running into a
but it
different
gets stuck.
lithology, a different
Yeah,
rock type.
basically,
Okay.
yeah. If for those of you out there, you think of oil as hydrocarbons, whether it's oil or natural gas, it's lighter than water. So it's trying to get out. It's trying to get out from
Right.
wherever it is because it's more buoyant, and it can get stuck. And that's basically what you look for. Another interesting thing is, as I say, stuck, but in geologic time, 99.99, I don't know how far I'd go out, percent of oil leaks to the surface.
Right.
So
It finds
all
a
the
way.
hydrocarbons that gets generated, it eventually works its way to the surface where microbes and things live on leaking hydrocarbons.
Right. That's
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah. So
yeah,
you're in Saudi Arabia kind of at the end of your career,
yeah.
and then did you do any consulting kind of when you quit working for the companies, or just that was kind of it and put on your hat and
I have so many things. I'm one of these types of people that I have a ton of hobbies, too
hmm.
many.
Yeah. You collect
And
hobbies
I
for as
was
a
there
hobby.
for, yeah, I was there for 5 years, and I was going to go to my sixth year, which, because there were benefits and things that were helpful to me. But because of COVID, we decided to bail out early.
Hmm.
But the one thing that COVID did for me, which now I'm very grateful for, is I got stuck in my apartment there in Saudi Arabia. They didn't want us to come into the office. They wanted us to work from home, and then they had technical issues and all that. So
Right.
I was kind of locked in my house there, and I started watching photography YouTube channels. So I enjoy photography, and I started watching YouTube photography people.
Hmm.
And, I kind of gravitated a little more to the artsy side and come along with me and
Yeah.
all that. And I had always noticed on YouTube that geology wasn't well represented. And I thought, this looks fun doing a YouTube thing. It's kind of, for me, my style, we each have our own styles, but for my style, I kind of envision myself as being almost like a movie producer. I get to, even more. I get to write the script. I get to do the filming, figure out the filming angles, all that.
All
Think
the
about,
acting, yeah.
the whole, every bit of it. And I
Right.
thought, this just sounds kind of fun. And I was a little nervous. I remember this. I thought, I'm going to search as hard as I can on YouTube and see what's out there in the geology world. And at the time, I don't think I saw you, Shawn. I think how long have you been doing this?
I started doing mine in 2020 also. I'd say that fall is when I kind of really got
Yeah,
going,
so I did.
but with 100
Yeah,
subscribers, you weren't going to find me because the algorithm
I
wasn't pushing me up the charts. So you were, so probably probably didn't come
no,
across
I
your
didn't
wire.
see you. I'm
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I didn't see you because you were
yeah,
just getting going.
right.
Really, it was Nick Zentner,
Yep.
and a couple of
All his backyard stuff and all that.
a couple others, but none of them were doing what I kind of wanted to do. Nick was
hmm
close, he had it, and I really enjoyed his work and still do. And I thought, I can't believe this. How can this be geology? In my world, geology is so duper duper important. And
Yeah.
it's amazing. And,
Yeah, why is
and
this
yet
niche not filled in the YouTube landscape? I felt the same way. Like Nick was doing great stuff, but he wasn't doing a whole lot in the field. And granted, it was COVID and whatever, but I'm like, we could be showing so much of
mm,
geology outside with a camera and just someone by themselves because we're in a pandemic or whatever. And that's kind of the little spark that got lit with me. And it sounds like it was somewhat similar for you.
yeah, I remember thinking to myself, how can it be that I can go to, say, the subject of physics, and it can get pretty esoteric physics,
hmm
and there can be 7 or 8 people doing YouTube channels on physics and have 1 million plus subscribers. They'll have some formula, an obscure formula, how this couldn't be solved, and there'll be 2 million views. And I'm
Yeah.
going, how can that outdo geology? I kind of took it a little personally, actually.
Right.
It's like, come on,
Right.
geology isn't that boring. Come
Right.
on, we can.
We've got the sexier subject. We just needed people to host it, right? We just needed someone to push it out there. Yeah.
But I got so paranoid about this, so I did some search and I started to become convinced that there was very little out there on geology. And to show you how paranoid I was, I called my son, who's a geologist. He's starting the way I am.
hmm
Actually, two of my sons are geologists. But
And you're still in
I,
Saudi Arabia at this time? This is
yeah, I
still
call up my
2020.
son
Okay.
Preston. Yeah, I call up my son Preston. I say, Preston, I just tell him kind of what I'm thinking. And I think I might want to do YouTube. I think that'd be fun. I said, I've looked around. Maybe I'm missing something. I'm kind of an oldie guy,
Yeah.
maybe I'm not, do you have to use hashtag this, that?
Right.
I don't know.
What's the code words, right?
Because surely there's, so I asked Preston, I said, would you search around? He says, no, I never see much on there. I said, really? I said, search again, because I just couldn't believe it.
You thought for sure like there was obviously this big the geology YouTube thing and you were just
Yeah,
missing it somehow. But he came back,
yeah,
I'm assuming, and said, "Nope, Dad. There's
yeah,
nada. There's not much."
exactly.
Yeah.
Not much.
Yeah.
It's very limited. Yeah.
Right.
And especially, you know, my style, there was nothing,
Right. For what you had
essentially
envisioned.
nothing. I'm sure, I would see a video or two from someone. I thought they did a great job, but they just do 1 or 2 videos and that's it. It's
Yeah.
just hanging out there. Not a real channel that has consistent material that
Right.
they're releasing or anything.
So did you end up doing your first YouTube video in Saudi Arabia? Like
No,
that
but
would have been awesome. Okay.
I sketched out a few. I
Yeah.
started thinking about my approach and all that because you know how this goes. Boy, you learn a lot. I
hmm
mean,
It's trial and error.
not just not just the technology, but I'm talking just, yeah, just how to work it and make it most efficient and what
Right.
people enjoy. And, da 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 da.
What works,
So
what doesn't work. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah, it's a big learning process.
so when did you come back to the States then? Was this 2021 by this point or late 2020?
21,
Okay. Like spring or something.
spring of 21, if
And
I
then,
remember
and
right.
then you're retired. You're done
Yeah,
working. Okay.
I decided, okay, I'm done. I have so many things I want to do, and including the YouTube stuff, but I didn't know, how much of my time that might take. And
Right.
so we move here. I have some land here, and I wanted to, and some of it hadn't been farmed in at least 20 years,
Yeah.
20 acres or so. And so, boy, I really had quite an adventure. I decided I'm going to plow it, I'm going to till it, I'm going to plant it, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to irrigate it, and I'm going to grow some uh, oats to feed animal feed.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it. So I'm kind of proud of that, actually, because I didn't know what I was doing that much, even though I'd worked for farmers. So
Yeah, you had to
it was
learn
quite
some
an
things.
adventure.
Yeah.
But this YouTube stuff kind of started getting in the way, and I go, in a good way, man, I'm kind of enjoying this, and it seems people are enjoying it.
Right.
I don't know if this is, I can't do both. So last year I decided, no, I'll let a cousin of mine do all the farming stuff, and
Yeah, because imagine
I'll
farming,
focus more on YouTube.
yeah, imagine the farming's very time intensive, and at least for
Oh,
5 months or
oof,
so of the year, like you're out,
you are,
10, 12 hours a
yeah,
day, like 6, 7 days a week, I'm assuming. I'm not a farmer, I don't know, but imagine it's like, I'm an Air Force brat, but
a lot
yeah,
of work. I'm
yeah,
so impressed with the people that that do that, till the land, and I
right.
mean it's a lot of work and very rewarding. I really enjoyed it, but I like geology more.
So when
And
did you know, sorry to interrupt, but when did you know, so you put out your first video, and I probably watched it, I just can't remember which one it was, but did you know right away, like, oh, that people like this is catching on, or did it take some time to grow organically? What was that like?
well, I'm by nature, my wife, we talk about this. By nature, I'm kind of a dreamer kind of person, always have been. Kind of dreamed of, dream of being a geologist,
Mm-hmm.
dream of living foreign, whatever it might be. And I kind of get focused. And on YouTube, I thought, well, there's nothing out there. I'm exaggerating, but
Yeah,
there's not much out there. If I do a reasonably good job, I think this could be successful and be a lot of fun. But I didn't know. So I released a couple of videos. One was the largest landslide. It's that
mm,
big
yep,
detachment,
mm-hmm.
I mean,
Heart
what a
Mountain.
story. I wanted to start with a bang, right?
Yeah, that's a
And
good
it
one to
turns
start with.
out, in my view, if I redid that, I'd be a lot better, more
Right.
efficient. It'd be a lot better. But I wanted to start with a bang and that. And I got a few hundred views, and it just kept creeping a little and
Yeah,
this and that. Nothing, I'm going, okay, be patient, Myron, be patient.
yeah, yeah. You
But
gotta. It takes time. Yeah,
the one that kicked it all off though was this, and I had no clue. I had no clue.
that's usually how it
I
goes.
did this, the petrified tree. I did
Oh
one on
yeah,
the giant petrified trees.
yep.
And I did that. That's one of the easiest videos. It's almost like you do it, Shawn.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of just showed up at the outcrop and just,
Kind of wing it.
I
Yeah.
I kind of winged it. I sat there and looked at them for a while. I had my brother with me at the time. He did all the drone work. I do all my own now. I do everything now, but I I kind of looked it over. I spent a couple hours just kind of thinking it while my brother slept in a lawn chair in the shade of the Jeep.
What a great story. But you've told me yesterday you like to you like it organized. You like to spend a lot of time scripting it in your mind and
Yep,
planning out the
yep,
flow. And I think that shows in all your
yep,
videos.
exactly.
Yeah.
But at any rate, I did that one and released it, and it just took right off.
Right.
And then I didn't know about some of the wild theories out there, and they were big contributors to my
Yeah.
viewership.
Yeah.
They were saying it, they're human hairs and hair follicles
Yeah.
and
That
this and that,
your
and
petrified
uh,
trees were really body parts from some organism, right? That's
yeah,
but they watched it and it grew your audience. So
yeah. It took off, And ever since then, it's, just gotten better.
So
I
it was
mean,
really just
not
that
more
one.
views. I mean, that's one of the big
Yeah,
ones, of course, but
right.
you don't know what's going to go. The only one that I
Yeah.
can say that I felt quite confident in, because I've been confident, been completely wrong. But
Yes.
this one I thought,
Yes.
surely, no
You
way
thought it
can
was a
this
slam
not
dunk,
work.
right? Yeah.
And I was actually right on that one. And that was the Gulf of Mexico with the salt,
Yeah.
the huge salt glacier that had come out,
Yeah,
and
that
I knew
bumpy,
no one.
irregular terrain on the bottom of the seafloor. Yeah.
And for me, see, I worked the geology there, and that was the most amazing geology I've ever worked anywhere on the planet, was there.
Right.
Working the salt and how the salt deforms in many basins. We refer
Mm-hmm.
to them as mini basins, all these pock marks. They look like craters. A lot of people thought they were
Yeah.
impact craters and things and all that. Just spectacular geology.
Right.
And this is one of those cases, kind of like we've talked about geology on YouTube. I had a feeling it wasn't out in the common knowledge, but I thought, I'm going to search on this. I looked and I looked and I looked and I looked, and I found one obscure video that a very technical video that a fellow did a couple minutes on that salt,
Yeah.
and this big that you can see on Google Earth,
Mm-hmm.
and I found I knew where there was better data. There were better data I knew about because I'd used it in my work.
Right.
And I thought, this isn't even known. This gigantic,
Mm-hmm.
really wild looking feature out in the Gulf of Mexico is unknown. So I said that nobody knows about it. And of course, you get the handful of people that say, "Oh, that's
Yeah.
not true.
Right.
I know about it." And it's
My
like
uncle in
most
1942.
geologists.
Yeah.
I can
Yes.
tell you this with
Yeah.
confidence: most geologists don't know about it.
Yeah. That's true.
The vast majority of geologists didn't know about it. So don't give me that.
Yeah.
I'm not being. It's essentially true.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
You got
the.
to have some nuance in life.
Yeah.
You
Exactly.
got to have.
So. Yeah. That's incredible. And
Yeah.
as a bit of a tangent, I'm curious. This is kind of going a different direction, but how does the salt tectonics, if you will, the salt is causing
Yeah.
the layers to change.
Yeah.
How does that affect your exploration techniques for oil and gas? Does it make it more complicated? Does it somehow simplify it, or?
There are two phases to that exploration. I'll say there are more than that, I'm sure, but I'll break it into two phases. The early phase out in the was a technical issue of drilling wells when you're out in deep water. Okay. And the salt helped a lot to trap oil. So I've had a lot of people request me to do a video about why is salt and oil, why are they associated? And people in Texas think they're always together, which isn't true. They're often together, and they often are associated with each other. And it's because salt is a good seal. It prevents. It's like having a barrier, a plastic barrier
So it's
that
another
oil can't.
impermeable trap, right? It's another oil trap,
Exactly.
right?
Helps you trap. So phase one is when you get out there, when you finally have the technology that you can access those hydrocarbons out there.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at these depressions in the salt that filled with sediment and thousands of feet of sediment, and they had source rock available, and you can trap hydrocarbons. And you had one of those very crazy times in industry, and it happens now and then,
Mm-hmm.
around the world, where you can actually directly detect the hydrocarbons using seismic. You can actually detect them.
Right.
And it was like shooting fish in a barrel for a period of years, where if you had two or three items that you could check on a checklist, and you'd go, there's a 90% chance that
Yeah.
we're going to find hydrocarbons. Now, to give people a feel, normally when you go to an area that you haven't really explored before, a 10% chance that you will encounter hydrocarbons would
Yeah.
be actually quite good.
Right. So you
Once you
drill a lot of
understand the
wells,
base,
right?
yeah,
Before you, yeah,
it's tricky business.
and it's all
Tricky
riding on the
business.
geologist. The geologist picks the target. The company puts their money where your mouth is and drills the hole in the ground. And you probably only get so many strikes until the company's like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Like, we need to. I mean, does it kind of work that way a little bit? Like, if Geologist has
Kind
picked
of,
30
yeah,
targets and
just
all of them are dry holes, like your reputation is a little bit in jeopardy.
yeah. No, there's definitely some of that, and
Yeah.
it's intense,
Right.
because you're dealing with huge, huge sums of money,
Yeah.
So I remember when I first started my job. So here I come. I'm just fresh out of school. They say, Myron, we want you to work this area. Okay, okay. And I'm working that area, and they're drilling a couple wells in there. And I thought, as I developed some concepts and stuff, I thought, boy, it'd sure be nice to actually acquire, while we're drilling, get some core out of the ground, which is an expensive proposition. It's at
Mm-hmm.
the time, it's probably three times that or more now. Probably, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even know. All I remember is to get the core that I wanted was going to cost $50,000, and this is in 1990, say.
Big money. Yeah.
And I said, and I said, I just kind of mentioned, I thought, it'd be kind of cool to have some core. And my boss said, well, make that recommendation. I said, okay, I recommend it. I said, okay, we'll do it. And I was like, oh, no, no, no,
Yeah.
you can't put that $50,000,
Is
I'm
this
just a
going to come
kid
out of? Yeah,
here.
it's going to come out of my check or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Jeez. Well, getting back to some of your YouTube stuff, so the channel kind of starts to take off. What's maybe like the video you're most proud of, or maybe, or if not that, then maybe answer that, but also a video that maybe kind of went under the radar that maybe folks could check out. Like,
Well, early on, that's a good question. So when I did the tree one that took off,
yeah,
and I thought, okay, what does this mean? Is this a fluke? Or is
right.
this for real? Are people really going to enjoy what I do? Or is this just kind of a quirky thing? And the very next one I did was on some bentonite ridges. I think
Oh yeah, that was a big one
what
too. It was the
and
hogsbacks. Yeah, the.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, unusual
Mm-hmm.
bentonite. And I released that and it did well. And I thought, oh, people are just going to love every single video I
Yeah,
do. Any geology I can
you
do,
got the
they're
Midas
just going to
touch.
love it.
Yeah.
And and soon thereafter, I learned, no, that doesn't quite work that way, Myron.
Well, I mean, we both have
uh,
experienced that where like sometimes you're sure it's going to do well and it does. Sometimes you're sure it's going to do well and it doesn't. And like
yeah,
but you kind of learn.
yeah,
I've given up predicting, and I'm like, if I enjoy doing it and I
yeah,
put it out there,
yeah.
then it gets the views it gets, and you know, as long as some people appreciate it, then that's good enough. And you can't get too tied to the numbers, I think, and at least that's the way I've
Well,
kind of
I've
approached
been
it.
super impressed with you. I've commented to my wife off and on about you and saying, man, this Shawn, he's just tenacious. He just keeps going. I like, he's putting out a video once a week here or whatever it is.
Well,
I
but
mean, it's like, where are all these videos coming from? It's like,
well, sometimes
wow.
like you do, I go out and I travel somewhere. I'm on a
Uh-huh.
trip somewhere, and I'll record like six or seven,
Yeah,
and then you get
yeah.
back and you can start spitting them out, and I don't know, but mine I
So
can
that's
put
an
out
advantage
more.
you have and your
Yeah.
style. But here's the interesting thing, Shawn. I thought I could do that too. So I go down to say one of my favorite areas is southern Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, I'll go down there and I'll do, say, at least two, probably three. And, I do the longer form stuff.
Right.
I get down there and I just can't focus on more than one at a time. So every time, in fact, I just put one in the can, as they used to say, some film in. I've got all the filming done. I've got to edit and everything is on the ancestral Rocky Mountains.
Oh, fun.
And I returned right back to the Moab area, and I was there, a month ago. But I couldn't, and I knew I wanted to do this other video, but I I struggle with multitasking, I guess, So I go, okay, I'll come home, do some stuff, and
One at a
return
time.
right back. Yeah,
Well, I think it's just the
but
different styles. Like your videos are so well crafted, a storyline from beginning to end, and you've got that plot line. Like you said, you're the movie maker from the director, And so I think it makes sense that you can't focus on three things at once. Whereas mine are kind of flash in the pan. Like I've even just was writing down some stuff for Friday over in the Boise area. I've got like 7 or 8 ideas on this page, and I'm like, yeah, I think I can go do all these in a day. I'm like, I'll hit this spot and then this
Wow.
spot, and now some of it's like knowing the area a little bit, but I think it's mine are quicker hits, and yours are really like they are like mini little movies. I mean, you know, we joked about you being like the movie director, but they are like these
Yeah.
standalone
Hmm.
geology educational documentaries that you put together. And I think it's great that we both have our own way of doing it. Um,
I couldn't agree more.
yeah,
I'm the more exposure geology gets and
yeah.
people, I get comments all the time about, why don't you get with Shawn and do this or that?
Yeah, I don't
And
know
then,
how well it would work if,
I love you and Shawn too,
yeah,
and Nick. It's usually Nick or you,
yeah.
the two of you. People say, yeah, we love these guys, keep it going. And it's like, well, I can't keep up. I know I can't keep up with Shawn.
Yeah, I don't know how, I
Uh,
think it'd be fun for us to do something in the field sometime,
yeah,
but
sometimes,
if I don't know how it would work, it'd either have to be Myron running the show or me running the show, because you would be like, well, we want to wait till the sun's at the right angle and get this shot, and I'm like, no, we got to do
yeah,
10 videos
yeah,
today. Let's just get it and go.
yeah,
So I think
yeah,
it's just a different style, but it all works, and I think the viewership
yeah,
kind of reflects that. So no, that's
yeah.
super fun. So. Well, cool. Well, what about, let's see, I got a couple questions here. Let's maybe switch gears and just talk about outreach in general, public, and the way science is presented to the public. Your approach and the way you present is very personable. It's very appealing to people. You're not talking down to them. Is that something that came innately or something you had to think about and be prescriptive about as you put the videos together? Like maybe talk about just is that just Myron Cook talking to people around a campfire about geology, or is that something that you like worked on?
That's just me.
Okay.
A lot of people assume I'm a professor,
Yeah.
and all that, which I find interesting because I'll tell you what, I've had some extremely poor teachers, professors,
Right.
as there's the whole gamut, and,
Yeah.
and I've come to view that teaching is something that's kind of natural within you. And you can, of course, improve and all that. But if you have someone that just doesn't have it,
Yeah.
that ability, it doesn't matter how many courses you take or things. And so you've got a mix. If you go to the university and things, you'll find some teachers that are just really good at teaching,
Yeah.
and others that are not good at all. And it's all you can do to get
Right.
through. And,
Well, you have great communication skills, and I think you would do well teaching in a classroom, at any level. And I think for what we do here on YouTube, it's apparent that you know who your audience is, you know who you're speaking
yeah,
to, and you're speaking directly to them. You're not dumbing and watering it down. But you're providing the context and the information they need to understand. And so I think that's what people appreciate most about you is just the communication, the enthusiasm is there. You're engaging, and I think that's where it starts. I think if someone, we all know something, right? Like someone can apply to
yeah,
be a teacher, and your resume tells me you've got a master's degree in geology. You know geology. I don't need to quiz you about geologic principles or trivia, but can you communicate that? Can you take that knowledge and pass it on to others? And that's either a skill that takes time to acquire, or for maybe people like you, it comes naturally, which is a very high compliment, I would say.
well, it's nothing that, I can't take. We're just all different. We're just
Yeah,
born with different. It's nothing that I did. It just kind of came to me. And I kind of learned that fairly early on in industry. They started wanting me to present to management.
yeah,
They'd say, could you do this? Could you talk to the board of directors about
right.
this or that or whatever? Because we like how you do it. And so I got a lot of feedback over the years that I was kind of natural at that. But
Yeah,
but going to YouTube's different. So no, what the people see me on YouTube is exactly just how I do it,
Yeah.
one-on-one. I like to get them to think. I like to ask questions. I don't like to just tell them the answers, which
Right.
is that's my style. Some people want to just know the answers too, and I get that. I
Yeah.
totally get that.
Well, I think it
Some
makes it
people
more
don't want to be.
engaging when you're asking questions. People
Yeah.
are going to sit in for a Myron Cook 30-minute
Hmm.
video. If you just tell them the answers up front, you can get it over with quickly. But
Yeah.
you presenting multiple hypotheses, looking at the evidence for or against something, I think that's storytelling is what it is. And I think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
maybe a lost art that some people just don't recognize. So, yeah. So, well,
But
go ahead, sorry.
yeah, I just hope that through well, we have the people we know that are out there doing geology on YouTube, and I just hope more join in and get
Yeah.
geology. Have you ever read, I forgot the author's name, A Brief History of Almost Everything
Yeah,
or
Bill
something like
Bryson.
that?
Yeah, I've read
Yeah.
that.
Now, he did a lot on geology, and you
Mhm.
look at the history of how popular geology was. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah.
They'd fill up auditoriums. People were super into geology. It was by far the most popular science.
I agree.
And
The
and
market's there.
somehow we've kind of slipped away from that. And
Yeah.
but but
Yeah.
we have opportunities now. Have
Right.
fun.
I think that the fields, it's there's a lot of room. There's you and I and Nick and others. I've seen a couple little smaller channels that have started up, and I think it's great because you and I can't cover all the topics and all the locations and all the outcrops
Different
and
styles.
all the rocks and all the styles of learning that there might
Yeah,
be,
yeah.
and so
Hmm.
it makes sense that there's going to be like multiple kind of venues and stuff. So what are some trends you're seeing, like just in geology in general and education, that you've seen over the last few years that maybe you're concerned about? Good trends, bad trends that you see like coming down the pipe now that you're kind of at the end of your career, looking back on 30 plus years of geology and industry and education.
The thing that I actually it keeps me up at night, literally. Now and then. I don't, I'm not on it all the time. Is how the geology, all these interesting locations, key locations out hiking. I mean, you have to do a lot of hiking and wandering around the mountains and hills and badlands, or if you're in the east, you're going through the brush and trees and forest trying to find a gopher
Yeah.
hole
Yeah.
or
Road
a
cut. Yeah.
small road cut and all these things, that's an accumulation of knowledge that in the past has continually been passed on because there are always new students that are doing field work, a lot of, you know, actual field work. And my perception is we're losing that. So, uh, let's pretend for a minute, and I don't want to say that I'm that important, or let's say the Bighorn Basin, but I'm pretty knowledgeable in Northwest Wyoming. Uh, I don't know who else would know uh, all these wonderful geologic outcrops or locations to go to through the whole sequence, the whole stratigraphy.
Right.
They might know it about a particular unit because they did a study or there or something.
They read a paper. Yeah.
Yeah, but even the papers, they often, actually, most often don't give you precise information where a key outcrop is.
Right.
That's pretty common. It was more word of mouth and things like that, or you go out with a professor and you see a key location,
Yeah.
you've done that. You go out with
Yeah.
somebody and like, wow, this is awesome. What
Yeah.
an
Like just a
outcrop.
eureka moment at the outcrop. Right. Just
Yeah.
like, yeah.
And I think those are being lost because at the university level, people are focused. My perception, and
Hmm.
you'd know more than me, is that more and more it's focused more on lab work and things like that, computer simulations, computer work, and whatnot. And I understand why, because that's where the frontier research is. You can only
Right.
study a particular layer of rock so many times before it's like you can't you can't get grants, money, funding, or whatever to study it at the university level and go, well, I want to look at it again. So I'm hoping there's some kind of, I don't have any answers, some kind of
Right.
mechanism, and maybe it's through YouTube. Maybe it's doing this. More people get
Yeah.
involved and go,
At
we're going
least
to take
seeing
you
the
on a
outcrop
field
and yeah.
trip. Yeah. And
Did
I
you
don't
get the
know, but
sense of that in industry and oil and gas as you saw young geologists coming into the industry? Did you get a sense that they lacked rigorous and meaningful field experiences as they're coming out
yeah,
of
definitely.
college? Like they had all the
Yeah.
bells and
Yeah.
whistles and
Hmm.
computer technical skills, but they just hadn't seen that many rocks. They hadn't engaged
Yeah.
with outcrops a lot. That's probably where the
I
concern
had
came
one
from.
student, I started mentoring people, which I really enjoyed. I didn't get to do it as much as I'd like to, but I I can think of a couple where I'd bring them out into the field, to explain some concepts, and they were, completely lost,
Yeah,
which at least in the oil and gas business, you've got to be able to understand what you see out here out in the outdoors
yeah.
because it's a huge scale. The scales are massive.
Yeah, you can't replicate that. Yeah,
And if you're in there and you read a paper and you see a little figure with a couple little layers and they're going to do this and that, and you think, oh, yeah, I understand this. No, you don't.
yeah,
You just don't. You can't, you've got to feel it, feel the rock, experience it. And then you can take that into, in my case, the business and visualize what's going on and the scale of what you're
right.
dealing with and how to do that. So yeah, yeah, I see it.
Yeah, I think the oil and gas industry, you have these large, complex data sets. A lot of times you're looking at it remotely. You're looking at
Hmm.
strat columns and logs and 3D fence diagrams and whatever. But if you don't have the context, if it's just on paper or on a screen, but you haven't actually seen that, you can't like connect with that, the context of what that looks like in real life. What does 1,000 meters of interbedded sandstone and shale, what does that actually look like, on a landscape?
Yeah,
Then I think you're right. And I
yeah,
think I mean, I don't know what the answer is either. I think to make change, because that's coming out of the university level. So if the colleges
yeah,
aren't
yeah,
training them and they're going in with substandard skills into the workplace, then the workplace has to let the academic institutions know, hey, we need your graduates to have better skills in these arenas. And so it's got to push back, down upslope, I suppose, in order for there to be change. And I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of removed from it a bit too at a 2 year college, but
uh-huh.
yeah. But I think,
And I
yeah,
don't have any answers because I understand the situation where
right,
people want to do, professors in general want to do research.
right. And some are
And
very
all the
field
research
based, but
is,
not all of them. Yeah.
yeah, and I think fewer and fewer.
And I wonder if it's too. I mean, this just came to me, but early on, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, you had to go out and look at things. Like
Hmm.
a little bit before our time, a master's thesis was typically you went into this area, a 7.5 minute quadrangle, and you mapped the geology. There was a time when that
Yeah,
was your master's thesis. It
yeah,
didn't
oh
it
yeah.
didn't it
Hmm.
didn't have any questions per se other than what's here and what's the geologic story. And I think we had decades and generations of geologists that did just that were
Yeah,
outside doing that. And now we're in a place where certainly not all the geology is mapped, but a lot of it is, like
yeah,
we've
yeah.
filled in a lot of
Hmm.
holes on the map. And so maybe now we don't feel the need to go out and look at those outcrops anymore. I wonder if just that mentality is influencing kind of this trend. Because I think there's something to it.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't, I
that's
don't,
likely.
yeah, I don't think you're imagining it. I think it's real. And I don't think it was necessarily a conscious decision, but it's kind of
No,
the
no,
current
it's just a
state,
natural,
yeah,
yeah, natural
the
progression.
current state of affairs. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what the solution is, but you and I both know that
Yeah,
you will understand geology a lot better. Learning from a book is good. Learning from videos and everything
yep.
else is good.
Hmm.
All knowledge is good, but geology is best learned outside, under the blazing sun, with a rock at your foot, and with that scale and context, that's when things really start to click. It's also
Yeah,
where it gets really confusing. But you have to get like completely confused before you can try to make sense of it. I mean, that's just the way it works.
uh,
So for all the
I
viewers
often
out there,
tell
sorry, go ahead.
I often tell my viewers, especially for them, when
Yeah,
you're amateur, not all my viewers are amateur geologists, I mean, but because I have geologists watch my channel, and I know you do too.
yeah,
But I often tell them, don't worry, especially where you're at, don't worry if you're right or wrong.
hmm,
Go out there and maybe you see some cross bedding or some, metamorphic rock or whatever it is, and you can start to imagine, oh, this could be this,
yeah,
this could be a beach. And
right,
if you happen to be wrong, it's in a way almost irrelevant to me and the way at least you're starting to imagine the earth as it was at one time.
yeah.
You're going to get some details wrong.
No,
That's fine.
you're coming up with a story, and right or
Hmm.
wrong, that's interpretation. That's part of the scientific process. That's a hypothesis. That's great. So start with those observations. Observations. You don't might not know all the names of the rocks, but this is a brown rock. It has crystals. It has a fabric or lines running through it, and then see
Yeah,
if you can weave a story out of that, and then have 5 friends with you and see what their stories are, and then talk
that's the
about
fun part. Yeah,
talk about it,
yeah,
and like then look at evidence that backs up your stories. And yeah, I agree. It's not about being right or wrong. So you and I have put together videos that are on YouTube probably permanently, and you and I have made mistakes, probably me more so
yeah.
than you, but like there's things on my videos I'm like
No,
that was wrong, that was a mistake, I would do that
yeah, yeah.
differently. And I do try to go back, and I actually have fixed a few, but for the most part, once they're there, it's kind of
It's a
go,
difficult thing to do. I just
yeah,
put a little note and say, hey, I got this wrong.
yeah. You just that's the editing. So, well, this has been
Yeah,
fun, Myron. Is there anything else you want to talk
yeah.
about related to geology or anything before we turn to some viewers and see what kind of questions they might have for you or I?
Now let's see what they have to say.
Okay, so yeah, thanks viewers for your patience. Let me jump in here and I got the first set of questions here. Um, all right, so I'm going to run through these. Boy, this is the first page. There's quite a few. So I'll just read these to you, Myron. If one's too long, I can probably put on the screen too. But from JPS Fudimo, they're asking you, Myron, are you going to be doing a video on the Powder River Basin?
Yeah, I will do it. It involves the Powder River Basin. So it won't be, just looking at the entire basin per se, but I'll definitely be involving the Powder River Basin in a future video.
Okay,
Yeah.
that would be great. So there you go. That person's hopefully happy. This is a question directed to me, but I think I don't know anything about this, so maybe you do. This is
Uh-oh.
Who's this person? Weenie's Desert says, "Can you talk about how the Arabian Nubian shield and the Syrian arc came to exist?" Um,
Oh, wow.
like I don't know enough about that to speak intelligently, so feel free to pass on that as well if you want to. And maybe they're just trying to
Well, here's
stump
some,
us.
that's the Nubian Shield. I know what it is, but that's
Yes,
about it.
yes,
That's about it. So believe it or not,
yeah.
you would think, living over there and whatnot, I could tell you how that came to be, but not
Yeah.
off the top of my head.
It's a big planet. It's 4.5 billion years, and even Myron and I together aren't experts on everything. That's for sure.
I could tell you a lot about, the sedimentary rocks that are on top of that shield, but
Yeah.
the shield itself, yeah, not so much.
Okay. Well, there you go. But there you go. There's exactly your and I's point is that there's someone out there that knows a lot about that area that can put together a YouTube channel and put out
Yeah,
videos that explain those
yeah,
things. So, all right, here's the
yeah.
next question from Connects Kid. It's a question for both of us. Have either of you visited the Lake Tahoe Basin? My family has an old cabin built in the 50s. I've been fascinated about the geology. Do you have a favorite formation in the Sierra Nevadas? So I'll let you go
Hmm.
first. Have you visited Lake Tahoe? That was the first part of the question. In that basin up
I
there.
went through there a long time ago, but it's actually an area I'm pretty ignorant on the geology would be that area, the Sierra Nevadas
Yeah.
and that area. I'll bet you have some in it, or do you?
I
I
mean,
don't
I
want to put you on the
no, no,
spot.
you're good. I mean, I lived in California for 2 years, but that was Southern California. I've been to Tahoe once or twice. Um, I mean, I think it's a graben if I remember right. It's a faulted graben. There's obviously a lot of granitic rocks there and some andesites.
Yeah, a lot of yeah.
But
I do
I
know
don't.
that.
Yeah, I've done some videos in Yosemite, but that part of the Sierras I've not done a lot in. So
These kinds of questions are kind of fun.
yeah,
Sometimes you just like, I have no clue, and other times it's, oh, well, I happen to know quite a bit about that. I had a viewer once say, "Oh, I was flying in an airplane and I saw this out the window. What is going on?" And I'm thinking, oh boy, because I get a lot of these kind of
yeah,
questions
the
and
emails, right?
emails, and I'm thinking, well, I'm curious. So I open up and I look at it, and I happen to know exactly, just from the one view
Yes,
out the window of that jet, and I know everything about it. And,
yes,
of course, they think I'm some kind of geology god. Oh, my word, he can just randomly look out the
right.
airplane window and know exactly what's going on.
Right. But then what they don't appreciate is there were 9 other emails that you got where you had
Yeah.
no clue and you either like haven't responded to those yet or you told the person, sorry, I don't even know what this is. So yeah,
Yeah.
I feel you. It's the same for me. Um, Tony Jarrett wants to know for us if we would ever consider doing a joint video on a location and giving us a real good debate on what the story of the area is and get both of your thoughts together on the story. So that might be if you and I went somewhere that maybe has, some competing ideas.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then maybe if we each kind of picked one side of the spectrum and just kind of had a civil discourse on like what's going on. I'm open to that. I can't think off the top of my head where that might be, but that would be fun sometime.
Yeah. I think that'd be fun. I've actually thought of doing that with my son and even creating a controversy where there isn't.
Right.
Well, I think this is, deposited in river deposits. Well, I think it's a beach deposit. And we get into a discussion as to,
And then
why,
how the evidence, yeah, exactly. How
yeah,
you reconcile
talk
that.
it through. And
Hmm.
of course, I would always come out the winner in these kinds of things.
Right. That's why if it's you and your son, maybe it's not so fair. I don't know. So, um, let's see. There's a lot in here that are location specific. Let me kind of. I guess I need to probably address all of them. Someone asks if either of us have done work in the Caribbean. I'll answer first. No, I have not. Have you done any work in the Caribbean, Myron?
A little bit,
Just oil and
a little
gas
bit. Yeah.
exploration work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's from Michael Simon. Dan Cooper wants to know, well, this is for both of us. Probably you more than me. I bet your expertise in this area are better than mine. Videos of the Wind River Range in Wyoming. I know a little bit, and I could definitely learn more. But I bet right now, if we were quizzed on the Wind River Range, you would score better than I would.
Could be, it's not
Yeah,
like I've studied them a lot, but I definitely know the Wind Rivers and,
yeah,
they're spectacular and wonderful. And I'm sure I'll do a video on them at
yeah.
some point, and you may too. I don't know.
I mean, that's the
But,
great thing is there's no end to the content you and I have. Other
the
YouTube
first thing
folks.
I'd
Yeah.
say about the Wind Rivers is the back thrust on the Wind River Range.
Hmm.
So a back thrust is, in general, when you have a orogenic event and you're compressing the land, usually there's a source from one side or the other that it tends to be moving in one direction, verging in one direction, this deformation. So maybe in this case, I'm going this way and it folds here and keeps crumbling out. And the thrust faults often are this direction. So here's a fault, my hand's a fault here,
Hmm.
and the rock breaks and goes. But sometimes you get them the opposite direction. They're called back thrusts. And the Wind River Mountain Range is a back thrust. And the displacement on that fault, on that back thrust, as I recall, is like 42,000 feet.
Oh my gosh. So wait,
It's
this
it's
the
you
whole.
can't even comprehend. You cannot comprehend how much displacement. So just make it clear to the audience.
Yeah.
Here's a layer of rock, my hands. the back thrust took this layer of rock and put it up 40, 42, 40,000 feet.
That much displacement on that thrust.
Vertical displacement.
Because it's a
Not
laramide structure, right?
vertical,
Yeah.
display.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
It's a layer. I mean, it's pretty steep, but
Right.
yeah, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think I knew
Yeah.
more like, the metamorphic rocks there, the Archean rocks, the
Hmm.
glaciation, but not so much the
Yeah.
structural history. So, um, let's see, Charlie Doyle, why did the Western Interior Seaway disappear at the end of the Cretaceous?
He's probably watched my most recent video.
Yep.
Why did it disappear? It filled in with sediment. That was step one,
Mm-hmm.
which pretty much made it disappear. I mean, that's the main reason. And then later, I think there's some debate on the age of this, but somewhere around 15 million years ago, the whole region, the whole Rocky Mountain region in total was uplifted, thousands of feet. I want to say, I don't know, on average, 4,000 feet maybe.
Just as
You see,
a big
the
area,
huge,
regional uplift. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, massive, huge area because the deposits that filled in that seaway were, of course, at sea level. Sea level
Mm-hmm.
hasn't changed that much. I mean, it
Yeah.
changes, but not like that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's filled in with sediment, really
Right.
is the answer.
And sea level was higher in the Cretaceous a little bit, but also that
But
area was pushed down to create the basin, but then it was filled in
yep,
with all the sediment. Yeah. So,
yep.
okay. There you go. Charlie Doyle. Fox Fur wants to know if you got to see the little meteor crater when you were in Midland.
I did.
Okay.
I
I don't know what he's
did.
talking about. There's a little like impact crater
But
site near Midland, Texas.
yeah, it's
Okay.
it's right near Odessa, Texas. Um, yeah, cool
Okay.
spot.
Awesome.
Uh, Fascinating. I will do a video on West Texas. The
Okay.
geology there, you go out to West Texas, on the ground, on the surface, it's like there's nothing
Mm-hmm.
unless you go, to some of the mountain ranges
Yeah, or Rio
nearby. But I'm
Grande or
talking
something. Yeah.
yeah, Carlsbad or things like
Mm-hmm.
that. But I'm talking out in the flat regions. But the geology underneath is just really very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of really neat history out there.
Yeah, that would be great. Like that's what's fun is just you can learn from so many different perspectives. So, all right, Craig P. Myron in a past video showed the Gulf of Mexico has not changed in about 8,000 years. Question is, how can there be an ancient city 650 meters below the surface that's only 5,000 years old? I have no idea
I'd
what
have
that's
to know the
about.
details of that claim.
Okay.
I get people ask questions like that, and that's a great question, but I'd have to see this. I'd have to see the evidence that this city exists in the first place because I haven't heard of it.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know much about that either. Here's one from Gail Vaught. How does the search for natural gas differ than oil in geology? Like when you're looking for natural gas versus oil deposits.
It can get a little, the easiest way is just make it very simple and it's just deeper. It's hotter. It has
Okay.
to, you have to have higher temperatures for that natural gas to be generated from usually from oil itself,
Right.
as it gets
And will they
buried
tend
deeply,
to be
deeply.
separate and segregated, or will they be together usually? Or
Well, you'll find oil fields with a gas cap on top of them.
right,
It's like an air bubble sitting on top. But typically, if you're in a true gas province where it's all natural gas, you won't find much oil because it's just too hot for oil.
right.
It'll
There's a
cook it.
thermal like sweet spot that it has to cook at in order to get the oil forming. Um, all right, let's see a couple more questions. You good for a few more, Myron?
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
Um, let's see. Someone's wanting to know. This is love is the answer. That's their handle. Will lidar unravel many mysteries? Is it a game changer in geology? Any? Did you guys use any lidar there towards your last few years with the oil and gas production or exploration? Or
They use it for the engineering of the site development and things
right,
like that, but not actually to explore, you know,
right.
trying to think how it could help you.
Yeah, because it's still LiDAR's surface based for the most part. And so,
Yeah,
I mean, I know it's helpful in like seeing through trees and seeing like
you're
topography and
right.
landslides, or even with volcanoes, you can use it for detecting movement, subsurface movements. But for oil and gas,
Right.
it seemed to be. So I'd
Yeah,
say,
it wouldn't
yeah,
do very little for that, but I'm trying to think just geology in general, say field geology. I could see it being helpful in
yeah,
certain situations, but I definitely not revolutionary
right. Probably not a game
like
changer,
archaeology.
right? But a
No, no.
useful tool in the right
Yeah,
setting. It's an
yeah.
application that's helpful. Um, Okay, let's see. From Maro, do you have an estimate of how much methane is leaking from the undersea oil and gas rigs? Don't know much about that either myself.
Well, I could comment more about just natural leaks in general. There's estimated that the natural seepage of oil, say in the Gulf of Mexico, if I remember right, is close to 1,000 barrels of hydrocarbons a day naturally seep.
Hmm.
And there are whole communities. If you study this, they even name some of these areas like garden banks and things like that because there's so much hydrocarbons leaking out
Of
through the
this,
rock naturally. You have whole diverse communities living off of those hydrocarbons.
yeah, different ecosystems, right, on the bottom.
So that is far dominates the hydrocarbon leakage unless you have a catastrophic situation, like
Right.
that BP well. I mean, that was horrific, when they have, a complete loss of integrity of the well and all that, and you
Right.
spew out all these hydrocarbons, then that obviously overwhelms the system and is not good at all.
Right. No, that's interesting. Here's a fun one. Greg in Eastern Tennessee. This gentleman will be in Wyoming for a week. What are the 5 geological things I should see, not counting Yellowstone? So what's Myron's top 5 list if you're coming to Wyoming and you're interested in geology? It's probably a hard one to pare down, but give him a couple ideas.
I'll give you a couple ideas. Spend some time on the Great Unconformity. The Great Unconformity is pretty inaccessible in most places. You got to go down the Grand Canyon. There's some places out other places like in, near Vegas, Las Vegas. But out here, it's really well exposed in some areas, and you
Yeah.
can look at my video on Snowball Earth, and I think you did one there at near Cody
Yeah, I
on the Great
did.
Unconformity.
Shoshone River Canyon. Yeah. And then another one I
And
did. Yeah.
Wyoming has the most missing time of anywhere. It's twice as much as the Grand Canyon.
It's
It's a
the
billion years more than in the
it's the
Grand
greater
Canyon.
unconformity in Wyoming,
Yeah,
right?
it's the
There's
greater
the
greatest.
greater,
Yeah.
yeah.
Then I would go to Sheep Mountain near Grable, Wyoming, because it's just super duper duper classic
Hmm.
geology that's easy to see. And after that, I don't know. Those
Okay.
are two for you.
Yeah, and then look through his videos. He's got a lot of Wyoming videos you can check out. Um, okay, here's one for both of us from Tony Jarrett. What I'll let you go first, Myron. What geological time period is your favorite time from the past? Like what
Ooh,
chunk of time is like gets you most excited? It's like asking you which kid is your favorite kid, right? That's how I feel about it.
yeah, I can't say that I have a favorite.
Maybe do you have a favorite formation or an episode of maybe Wyoming geologic history where you're like, man, I always love to see or hear this thing, whether it's
The one thing that I always am mesmerized by, even now, I'll never forget on my very first geology field trip at school. Finally, we get to go out in the field, and they show a channel, a river channel, a sandstone channel and a road
mm-hmm.
cut near, where was that? Southern Utah somewhere.
Yeah.
And I was utterly mesmerized because I could see the river.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was obvious to me,
Like a
and it was
point
like,
bar deposit or the channel and everything.
this was
Yeah.
just literally just the channel
Right.
itself, and I still to this day, I go out in the Badlands here by my place and I can see hundreds of them. And every time I see one, I'm like, man, that's just
Yeah.
it just gets me, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Like it just kind of resonates with you. No, that's
Yeah.
cool. I think if I had to pick a time period, I think it's the longest one, so it's a bit of a cop out. The Cretaceous was pretty awesome. Like the Cretaceous,
It is,
there
yeah.
in the western U.S., the Cretaceous was one in the beginning of a second major orogenic or mountain building event. You had a big basin. The dinosaurs were here. The continent was starting to
Yeah.
get flooded.
Yeah.
The Wyoming, Idaho fold and thrust belt, where I've spent some time mapping. I don't know. I love those formations. I love the basin deposits going from like the big cobble conglomerates right at the foot of those mountains, and then as you
Yeah.
move east
Yeah.
into Wyoming, it becomes more fine grained. So, if I had to pick one, that would be mine. So,
I wouldn't argue with you there, Shawn.
yeah, that's
It's
but
pretty
the
awesome.
lots of good stuff there. Um, let's see. Let me find a couple other here, maybe two or three more. For both of us, from Lore Tunderin, which technologies or study areas are you most excited for in the future? I recently learned about paleomagnetism, and it's exciting to think about other possibilities. So either study areas or technologies that you're most excited about us maybe learning more, discovering more, kind of moving forward.
Well, that's a good question. I'm wondering if we'll get better imaging, actually imaging the ground underneath, because if in the end, as a geologist, if you're actually studying the Earth's structures and sedimentology and stratigraphy, it's what you observe
Mm-hmm.
out in the field, or it's what you image underneath the ground. And
Yeah.
how, so the imaging technology, and it has improved a lot. It has improved a lot. And I've had the opportunity, which I know you haven't had much opportunity, but in my industry, that's where they get the vast, vast, vast majority of all
Right.
this information.
Yeah.
And I wish it was released to the public. I would love to do some videos on seismic of, because I've seen seismic that'll just knock your socks off, just
Yeah.
spectacular things, that's underground. So for technology, if we could make some big breakthrough and image it even better, because right now, if you think of say an MRI or a CAT scan that we do on human bodies, we can see things
Mm-hmm.
really fine
Super
detail.
precise. Yeah.
In general, I'll just say in seismic data that you're imaging the ground underneath the ground, you have to have a layer of rock that's, in general, I'll say 50 feet thick or more. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very low
For it to
resolution.
show up on the refractions.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you're looking at a very blurry image.
Yeah.
And
And I don't know, I mean, yeah, who knows in 10, 50, or 100 years what we'll have. And I would almost, I'm going to use the same answer you did there, but kind of take a different direction. I'm doing all these Iceland volcano videos, and the reason we don't know exactly what's going on with this fairly simple but somewhat also complicated volcano is we just don't know the plumbing system. We don't know.
oh yeah,
We
yeah,
we can image. We more or less know where the magma storage zone is, but the pathways it takes to get to the surface is a complete black hole. Or if we look at
yeah,
groundwater, the exact pathways that groundwater takes going to a
yeah,
spring or a well, I mean,
yeah,
you just don't know. You
yeah,
can get subsurface data on the rocks, but you don't know exactly what
yeah,
pathways it's taking. And so I agree that like subsurface data, if there could be a big improvement or some big discovery there, that would radically influence how we do geology for sure.
oh yeah. I'm
So
sure we'd uncover, yeah, amazing things. Yeah,
yeah, so
for sure.
that's maybe the next frontier. So here's one for you, Myron. Lisa T wants to know what in Alberta is the most interesting geology location that you would suggest someone go see. So what was high on your list there? Were you in
Oh wow.
you were in Calgary,
I was
right?
in Calgary.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in Calgary. This is going to be you're going to think maybe it's a cop-out answer, but anywhere along the Colorado or excuse me, the Canadian Rockies, you
Yeah.
get up in those Canadian Rockies because and I want to do a video on this actually. I've got that on my list. I've got a long list.
Yeah.
Uh, the Canadian Rockies, there's Rocky Mountains like that too in the US, but I want to use the Canadian Rockies. Is there especially there along the front there near Calgary and all that, where they're so spectacular, is it's thin skin tectonics,
Yeah,
which
it's
you'll know,
severe. Yep.
thrust faults and all that. So you have all the sedimentary layers are what are exposed, where you come to the laramide type of mountains, like let's say Colorado Rockies, it's almost all basement rock up because
Yep.
it involves the deep basement in the uplifts, and Wyoming, much of Wyoming is that way too. So so I guess what I'd say is I saw so many unbelievable places there in the Canadian Rockies, just in the mountains.
Yeah.
Bit of a
Yeah.
cop out.
No, I think that was, it's not a cop out. It's the most obvious choice for good reason. And there's so much within that, right? You could be looking at the folds and the faults in the structures. You could be
The
looking at
structure,
the rocks themselves. You have
sedimental,
the
yeah,
glacial history. I mean, there's just so many like layers to just the Canadian Rocky area.
yeah, yeah.
So that's good. I think that's a great answer. All right, let's just do one or two more. Um, let's see. For Myron, this is from Rubato88. What are your thoughts on future jobs in oil and gas for geology majors, given sort of the way things are going with fossil fuels and stuff? Like what you can dissect that
Well,
however you
it's one
want.
of those, yeah, my son's uh, in that business.
So he's already graduated and out in industry now, or
Oh yeah,
okay,
yeah. And um, first of all, they're always going to need geologists doing that, even though, and hopefully, I'm one of these people, I'm in that business or have been in that business. I hope we find a better energy source. The only one that I can think of that's at least seems reasonable would be nuclear.
hmm
And I know that that's not very popular either. So you've got an issue there. I don't personally like solar, or not solar, wind power, because I see those wind turbines from 100 miles away in Wyoming when I go
yeah,
out there.
just
So that's
aesthetically, yeah,
yeah, aesthetics. I'm
yeah,
kind of selfish that way, and I don't
right.
like it when I see oil rigs either, just off the coast.
Yeah,
So,
it all comes at a price. You got to give something up to get the energy. So,
but they'll always need hydrocarbons, even if we don't use it for transportation. You'll need it for the plastics and this and that. But the jobs could get skinnier. Uh,
yeah,
in the end, what I tell young people is you got to go for it. If you're really passionate about something,
yep.
you just go all in. It may not work out. I don't, who am I to say it will or will not? But you want to just go for it. And that's kind of what happened for me. Boy, I didn't know if I was going to get a job. I feel kind of lucky that I did.
Well, I think you had more foresight than I did because I graduated with a master's degree and had no clue what I was going to do with it. Luckily, didn't have four kids sitting around the house, um, but had no
Yeah.
idea like how am I gonna turn this into a career? And then I spent 3 months unemployed until I got my first consulting job. But it was, but I totally agree with you, and I advise students the same way. Like if this is what you love, if this is something you want to be involved with, then you go in 100%, learn everything you
Find a
can,
way.
take advantage of every opportunity, find a way, and opportunities will come and you'll find your path. Like you might start out in oil and gas and decide 6 years in that you want to go in a different direction, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Like you can't
Yeah.
predict as a
Hmm.
20, 25-year-old, even your son, like he might go in a different direction in the future.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
yeah, but I fully agree that people should do something they enjoy, they love, that they're passionate about. I get up every day
Guess
and
what? That's what they'll be good into, right? That's what you're going to be good at. If you're
yeah,
really passionate
yeah,
about something, you're going to be good at it.
yeah. And you want to be excited going into work every day, like,
Mm.
excited about the opportunities and what you're going to be doing. You don't want to be going in with a sense of dread and like, oh man, another 40 weeks hours this week, and how long till my 2 weeks vacation. That's just not a way to live your life, I don't think. So I agree that opportunities will come in any field. You just have to, but you got to put a
It's scary
sacrifice.
though.
Yeah, it is.
That's
Um,
it's very scary.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I
the
think it was
unknown.
scary for us back then, just like it
Oh
is
yeah,
now. I don't
yeah,
think we had it much
yeah.
better. You went into an energy field that was suffering. There wasn't a lot of jobs, but you got the first job, and that got you to the next thing, and that got you to the next thing, and all the while you're building skills and building, your resume, so to speak, and there you are in a
And
nice ranch
and
in Wyoming.
I had buddies that uh, they didn't get jobs, and I must admit some of my biases. I thought some of them, I don't think they'll ever get a job, because
Yeah.
they weren't
They got the
particularly
degree,
gifted.
right. Yeah. They
They
got the
weren't
degree, but
particularly
right.
gifted.
Yeah.
But you know what? Uh, I would say, this is a ballpark, probably at least half of those got jobs, and I have to give them a massive amount of credit. They just stuck to it and worked another job for a while and just showed that they were passionate about it and
They,
found a way.
yeah,
It was,
persistence. Yeah.
yeah, it really impresses me, actually. It really impresses me.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta just keep pushing forward and being persistent, and sometimes you knock on a door and sometimes you pound on a door to get in, right? Like it's just knowing what the right situation entails.
Oh,
So,
I remember the what some of the young folks use, the Hunger Games,
oh
Hunger
yeah.
Games, when
Yep.
it's kind of, when my
Cutthroat.
son,
Yeah.
he came into industry at a tough time, and boy, he worked 2 summers, different companies, and couldn't get job, and he said he felt like he was in the Hunger Games.
It was kill or be killed, right?
Yeah, it's like
How many years has
bad
he been
deal.
how many years has he been out of school now? How many years has he been in the workforce?
He's been, I want to say about 6 years, 5, six
Okay.
years.
But he's
Yeah.
finding opportunities are coming, things are getting
Yeah.
better.
Hmm.
Okay, so there's a
Yeah.
there's a happier end to the beginning of that Hunger Games story for him. So, and and he lives where
Yeah.
did you say? He's down. Oh,
Midland,
down. Oh wow,
Texas.
back in your old stomping ground. So, yeah,
Yeah.
you can go down
Yeah.
there and visit him and do a couple videos there or something.
Sometime. Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
fun. So. Well, this has been great, Myron. I really appreciate you coming on here. This is something that a lot of viewers have been asking for from both of us and clamoring for. But I found it super interesting to get to know you a little better, hear your background, learn some new things. Um, and I would love to, if we can work it out at some point, whether it's in Wyoming or wherever, I think it'd be great to just get out in the field with you and look at rocks, maybe turn the camera on, maybe not, and just spend some time together. So I've enjoyed
Yeah,
this
that'd be
immensely.
fun.
So
That'd be fun.
yeah,
And thank you for doing this. And
yeah,
yeah, it's great to get to know you for
yeah.
sure.
And I'll teach you all my
And
live stream tricks, but I'm no expert. So if this is something you want to do,
the
I'm happy to help you out as best I can.
the problem is you could teach them to me and I'd forget them the next day,
Well, yeah, it's tricky, and
unless I use it.
it's hard because you can't practice it. Because as soon as you
Yeah.
turn on the
Yeah.
live stream, people are going to start watching, and now everyone's watching you fumble your way through it sometimes. So, yeah, but
Yeah.
we can get you up to speed or do whatever. So if you're ever down here in Idaho, let me know. I'll buy you some dinner or
Okay.
whatever. So, but I appreciate it. I'll make sure you get a copy of this if you want to put on your channel or whatever. And usually the way it works is if you want to read through all the fun stuff on the live chat, usually after I upload it or it saves it, it takes maybe 10, 20 minutes for all those comments to
Okay.
dump in there so you can scroll through those. But without me even looking at it, I know the viewers are super appreciative of your time. They're grateful for the wonderful videos you put out. And I want to thank you as, in addition to Nick, just another source of inspiration for me, helping me figure out better ways I can do things, giving me ideas. I don't think any of us are replicating each other, but I think we're
No.
building
No.
off of each other's successes and maybe even failures at times, and that's great. That's a good community. So I'm happy to call you
Yeah.
my colleague in
Yeah.
that sense. So
Yeah. Same to you. I'm very grateful for any of the geologists that go out. And of course, really the only two I know are you and Nick.
yeah,
I don't know Nick, but
yeah,
we've traded messages,
yeah. He's a great guy, and he's definitely kind of inspired me to just start all this just like you. So
Yeah.
we'll give a quick shout out to Godfather Nick, I suppose.
There you go.
the the master of the geology education. So, well, I'll go ahead and let you go, Myron, but have a great day. Thanks so much, and we'll be in touch, I'm sure.
Okay. Good
All
to
right.
see you guys.
Take care. Bye, Myron.
Bye.
All righty. Let me turn on my webcam here. Can you guys still hear me okay? I didn't mean to end the Zoom meeting, but it did go that way. Whoops. There we go. Can you guys hear me now? Sorry. Hopefully it's working now. Is it good now? I think I've got this sound back on. We good to go now? Can folks hear me okay? Let me know if you can hear me okay. No sound, it says. Oh, yes, no? Let me know if you're hearing me okay. 5 by 5. Okay, sorry about that, team. I was having some trouble there. Okay, so just as a quick recap, I just super enjoyed that conversation with Myron. I didn't know much about him previously. He obviously has done stuff on YouTube. I knew he'd worked in oil and gas. We both had gone to the same university for our master's degree, but we weren't there at the same time, so we didn't really cross paths. But I really enjoyed learning more about his career, his background, and especially knowing a little bit more about how he kind of got started with YouTube and education. He's a naturally gifted communicator. I watch some of his videos, and I am envious a lot of the times in not just the mannerism and the way he teaches and communicates, but just how smooth and polished everything is. And at the same time, you know, I can only be me and he can only be him. And so I really appreciate all our viewers that seem to enjoy and learn from both of us. I think that's great that we can both, operate in different places and still educate people as best we can. So just a big thank you to Myron, and thank you, of course, to all our viewers that have been here today. Thank you for submitting your questions. I got to as many as I could. There was a couple there at the end. I kind of looked at all the pages I had and knew probably wouldn't have time for all of those. So if we missed your question, I do apologize. But also a big thank you to our moderators, Mandy, Joe, Susan, and Lisa. Thank you for running the live chat today. That's always super helpful, and sending me the questions. So we will do another live stream sometime soon. I will try to do, for sure, let's do another live stream sometime next week before I leave for Iceland. We'll probably just do one with just me. We'll do an update on Iceland, maybe on Kilauea as well, depending on what's going on. And we'll do viewer questions as I always do. So look for sort of a regular live stream episode from me sometime next week. But in the meantime, thank you all for spending time with Myron and I today. And I hope he and I can get out in the field sometime soon. That would be awesome. In the meantime, look for some other videos coming your way from me. I'll try to recirculate a few older videos that need a little bit more attention, and I'm going to be making some new ones here as well. I also have in the hopper some Geology 101 videos I want to put out. Instead of I want to get a couple of them done and then kind of start to release those. And so I'm hoping to get a couple of those launched before I leave for Iceland in a few weeks. So thank you all for joining me today. Hope you're having a great day, and we'll see you soon. Thanks so much, friends, and good day.